Well, joining us now is the former British ambassador to Russia. That's Sir Andrew Wood. Hello to you, Sir Andrew. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Absolutely shocking news coming out of Mariupol, both at the steelworks and also the number of dead as a result of what appears to be a Russian targeted strike on a theatre where women and children were sheltering.
Horrible. They don't care, the Russians, and they lie about it anyway.
I understand. Where do you think this is going to end, Mr. Ambassador? We know that next Monday, I think, is a big day, isn't it? It's Victory Day in Moscow, in Russia, and it had been thought that by then Putin had thought this war would be won. What do you think will happen now?
Well, he thought he was going to win it a long time before, but in fact he's losing heavily. And I think we have to realise that he cannot win the war in the sense of achieving a settled outcome. Nobody in Ukraine is going to forget what he's done and what his forces have done and the way they've done it. That in itself is a defeat. Secondly, it is apparently the case that he's already lost more Russian troops to death than they lost during the war in Afghanistan. I think he's in a terrible fix in that way. But Russian propaganda is completely, it doesn't care about the truth anyway. So presumably he will try to work up some sort of story, probably that it's all our fault. But I think he's in an impossible position.
We are being told by the Kremlin that President Putin is still open to talks with President Zelensky. Do you believe him?
Well, I'm sure he's open to talks with Zelensky, provided Zelensky agrees to Russian conditions, whatever they are at that moment. There is no, I don't think there could be any real dialogue until the results in the eastern region are clear. If Russia continues to lose troops at the rate that they are, then they can have talks about Russia retreating, essentially. If he wins in the sense of slaughtering more Russians, slaughtering more Ukrainians, it still isn't a victory because it's not a permanent solution to anything.
We also must keep an eye on what Belarus is up to. We are being told that they're conducting military drills. How much of a threat do you think this might be to Ukraine?
Well, if Belarus was ready to send its troops in and mobilize fully, it would, of course, be an increased threat. But the Belarusians so far have been extremely cautious about doing anything. And some Belarusians, at least, have decided to fight on behalf of the Ukrainians. So I think Lukashenko has to watch his control over his own country, which is already fragile. So again, I think it's something which may happen, but I do not believe it's going to be a full-scale invasion from Belarus.
Just hearing from the Ministry of Defence this morning saying Russia will likely seek to inflate the threat posed to Ukraine by the exercises that we are hearing about in Belarus, and ordering to fix Ukrainian forces in the north, preventing them from being committed to the battle for Donbass. I suppose that's a reasonable theory, isn't it?
It's a reasonable theory, and if it happened, of course, it would be a threat to Ukraine. I do not think, however, it would reduce a surrender to Russian conditions or Belarusian conditions from Ukraine. Ukraine at present is it's holding its own very, very well indeed, and it's revealed the fact that the Russian army, and I would believe the Belarusian army as well, is of limited experience and skills. It's we all believed, or most of us believed, that if the Russians did invade in February, it would be quite a quick win for them because of the numbers of troops and because of the idea that we all had about their effectivity. But I think we forgot that the Russians had actually had rather little experience of fighting hand-to-hand or between troops. What they did in Syria, for example, is flatten cities, just as they did flatten the cities when they were at war against Chechnya, and as they would have done if had they felt it necessary in Georgia. Controlled and wide-scale fighting has not been their skill, and their effect has been very poor from that point of view. As I understand from military men, I can't pretend to have done it myself, but it is a complex thing which they have not succeeded in doing.
What more do you think Britain could be doing at the moment, and indeed wider Europe?
I think what Britain is doing at present is stalwart and effective. It's certainly won the affection of Ukrainians, and it's also increased Britain's standing and attitudes in the whole of Eastern EU, if you like. I was recently in Estonia, for example, and our word had quite a lot of value to it. The idea that Finland and Sweden may also join the EU now is it's an absolutely radical change, and a radical change for Russia. I can only hope that in the end, the Putin regime will take account of some new realities and be different, you say cautiously.
Yeah, indeed so. Mr. Ambassador, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the Breakfast Show on Sky this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.